All right, today we're going to explore a little bit further absolute value. We did look at categorizing it into number sets. Today we're going to take a look at how we could use it as calculations. So absolute value, let's start with the definition. It means the distance from zero. And the key word there, guys, is distance. If you think about what that means, what type of numbers would match up with distance? So remember when we talked about in an introductory video or even in the lessons about describing numbers, certain numbers are used to describe certain events. So distance, the numbers that represent distance are always positive. And if you think about that, again, if you're giving directions how far it is, the distance from one location to another, it makes no sense that your answer would ever contain a negative. If someone said to you, it's negative 12 miles, you might look at them a little crazy. So again, in math, we use numbers that fit certain situations. And absolute value is something that we use to represent positive values only. So again, no negatives. So if we look down farther in our notes, so in practice, absolute value means kind of train yourself to think it is the positive version of the number you see. So it's the positive version of the number. I'm going to throw that up there so you can see it. So again, if I was looking at 6, this distance right here, my absolute value of 6 is 6. Over here, my absolute value of negative 6 is also 6. So again, whatever number you have, 6 or negative 6, the absolute value of that would be the positive version, which in both scenarios would be 6. All right, so to kind of go over the notation, again, you might remember this when we talked about a couple lessons ago. The notation are those vertical bars on each side of the number. So the square root of negative 5 is a distance of 5. So here would be your simplified answer. Now, a couple of you missed this in the earlier lessons, but if it already is positive, guess what? Your answer stays positive. How far is 7 away from 0? What's the absolute value? It also is 7. So it's not the opposite. So please be careful with that. It's not the opposite of what you see. It's the positive version of that. And sometimes it's the same. Simplifying absolute value. So let's take a look at some operations. The very basic category is simplifying absolute value when you have operations inside. You can only remove those absolute value signs. You can only take the positive version or find the distance when you have a single answer inside. So if I look here, I have an operation in there, 8 minus 3. So you must do the operation first, which 8 minus 3 is 5, and then say to yourself, what is the distance from 0? What's the absolute value? Your answer would be 5. So here's another example, absolute value of 2 and 2 minus 9. So again, I would have to do my calculation first, which 2 minus 9 is negative 7. The absolute value of that would be, I guess I could just put my equal sign there. It's going to be equal to 7. And technically, I should still draw, so let me take a minute and draw my absolute value signs in there. But this is still negative 7 in my absolute value bars, and then pop it out as 7. All right, so sometimes you have a combination of both. Absolute value signs only change for what's inside of that bracket. Outside values, signs, operations, anything like that continue to change your answer, okay? We want to think of absolute value signs as a parenthesis. It's a grouping mechanism. So they are considered under the parenthesis category when we looked at order of operations. So they are done first. So here's some examples to review. We have 5 minus 2 inside of my brackets. We reduce that down to a 3. Now notice this little negative sign. It's kind of lurking out front. It just drops right on down as I work through my problem. Now, just looking at my absolute value section, my absolute value of 3 is 3. And guess what? That negative continues to follow it and actually changes my final answer. So guys, it's possible to have a negative answer when you're working with absolute value. Okay, example number 2, 4 plus the absolute value quantity of x minus 5, or 8 minus 5. So again, we're doing that inside operation first. 8 minus 5 is 3. That 4 plus is just coming straight on down. Absolute value of 3 is 3. My 4 plus is still following its way down. And very last but not least, you just do 4 plus 3, which gives you 7. Okay, last thing to kind of point out to you is this last example, 2, and then inside my absolute value, we have 3 plus 4. Now I want to take a look. This 2 is being buddied right up against that absolute value symbol. So if it was a parenthesis, I'm hoping you'd recognize it's multiplying. Parentheses, absolute value, again, they're both grouping symbols. So the operation between those two would be multiplication. So following what we know, order of operations, we're going to do inside our absolute value first. 3 plus 4 gives us 7. That 2 out front just kind of comes on down. Absolute value of 7 is still 7, so it drops down, remains positive. My 2 comes down, and again, you see I actually wrote my multiplication symbol there so you could also see it further, but that would be 2 times 7 and would give you the final answer of 14. So this box here, I just kind of was looking at, just as a helpful hint, numbers that are directly, I'll try to get this over here so that you can see it, numbers that are directly out front of absolute value sign or multiplication. Sorry, that's super huge. So I'll reduce it here so you can see it and throw it near that box. So that's kind of what that box was, just to kind of take note of those special problems. All right, taking it a little step further, you can also have operations with multiple absolute value signs. You still follow the idea of that absolute value. It needs to get pared down to one single digit before you can pop it out of the absolute value signs and take the positive version of the number. And you're also taking a look at following order of operations. So I have 2 examples that are here done for you. Again, if I'm looking at this first problem, I'm going to simplify 5 minus 16 plus 2 gives us negative 9. I'm keeping my brackets. And I already have a single value, negative 5, negative 5. I just brought it down until I'm ready for it. Then I'm going to ask myself, what is the distance of these numbers from 0? So when I go to remove my absolute value symbols, that's when I look to switch it if it is negative. So negative, absolute value of negative 9 turns to 9. Absolute value of negative 5 turns to negative 5. Or I'm sorry, turns to 5. And then last but not least, go ahead and do that basic operation, which 9 plus 5 gives you 14. Okay, looking at the one in the middle, this one doesn't really have any kind of computation needed, meaning there weren't a bunch of some operations inside of it that you need to do first. This one is straightforward. We have just single digits, so you're ready to drop them out. The absolute value of 8 still is 8. Absolute value of 13 is still 13. But take a look at this example. I put this here to show you that, see how those 2 symbols, they were being subtracted from each other. Absolute value of 8 minus absolute value of 13. When you remove the symbol, it still is a subtraction as far as an operation in between. Then on the back end here, there was a division portion of my problem. 12 divided by 3, which is 4. Then you're down to a simple math statement, following order of operations left to right, subtraction and addition. 8 minus 13 plus 4 gives you the final answer of 1. And then this last example to kind of work through it with you. Again, this has just different example, or these are just all different examples that show you different things. We want to look at simplifying within the absolute value first, then popping them out as positive numbers. So the square root of negative 24 is going to come out. I'm going to first kind of look. I've got three absolute value symbols, right? Right here, right here, right here. Everything else is just going to be rewritten. So I'm even going to kind of show you a different approach there. I kind of left my spot, but you see everything I didn't highlight, I just rewrote. And then I'm going to work on popping out my numbers. So absolute value of negative 24, again, I'm looking at the positive version. Absolute value of 8 stays 8. And the last part there, absolute value of negative 5 turns to a 5. From there, order of operations. So I'm going to do my division and multiplication first. So here's my division. It's going to be 24 divided by 4 is 6. And then the second portion, I'm going to move on over and do my 8 times 5, which is 40. And again, that operation of subtraction is still following us. It's still coming on down. So 6 minus 40. So in the end, when you do that calculation, you should find your answer to be 34. Now your assignment for this week is slightly different. How I have it set up for you is that you're going to see these examples on your worksheet along with you try sections. So it is going to, let me see if I can actually bring it up and move it over so that you can see it. So again, these examples you're going to see completed that you can reference with you try section. So again, we did these 3 examples, and then you're going to see 3 problems that you can complete. Now you notice they're going to be, their problem models are right above it. They're very similar to the ones that I did. So use those in your guiding you, and I also encourage you to use a calculator. So the attachment worksheet again has your examples for you to reference and green try it sections. I believe there's a total of 13 problems, but you're completing everything in the try it section. Show me your work as best as you can, but I understand on the computer it's a little hard, so you can either feel free to write a one number answer down below and risk it. It's either right or wrong. Or if you want to show me your work, I would greatly appreciate it. If you want to write out the problems, show me the work, you can also take a picture and inbox it to me. So good luck. Reach out if you need any help.